Well, hello everyone. Glad you're back, and the weather's getting warm, the water's getting right. Lots of people are thinking about going to the lake or going to the river or to the ocean to fish right now. But Jesus said in Matthew 4:19, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." And that's what we're studying. So get your notebook, get your pen, sit down and go with us on our journey as we learn about going fishing. Well, this is our fourth installment of Let's Go Fishing, and today we're going to talk about getting ready to go to the fishing hole. And let me tell you, the fish do not come to you. You can dream about fishing, you can read the catalogs, you can get your poles and your rods and your reels ready, but you can never catch a fish until you head out to the fishing hole. And you need to learn right now that if we're going to catch any fish, we need to hang that "Gone Fishing" sign up and head right out to the fishing hole. You remember Jesus made his way to a great fishing spot. The Bible tells us about it in John chapter 4, verse 3 and 4. He left Judea and he departed again unto Galilee, and he must needs go through Samaria. Look at there. He didn't just happen to go through Samaria. The Bible says he needed to go through Samaria. Now, he was leaving Jerusalem, headed up to Galilee, and the shortest route was through Samaria. But the Jews, they hated the Samaritan people because they considered them half-breeds. They were half-breeds not only ethnically, but they were half-breeds religiously. And many that did not even want to get around the Samaritans would cross the Jordan River and go up on the Persian side and then come back across to Galilee. That way they wouldn't even have to go through the bad neighborhood of Samaria. But I want you to notice, not Jesus. Jesus says we're headed north to Galilee and we need to go through Samaria. And the reason was because he knew there was someone there that he needed to meet. You remember he met the woman at the well, and all the conversation that began with her and led to her conversion. And not only that, then she went back into the city and she gathered up more people and she brought them back. And many people came to know Jesus Christ as Lord and Messiah because Jesus made a conscious effort to go down to Samaria and not to bypass it. I intended to go there. I wanted to go there. And that's how fishing works when we're fishers of men. You can dream about it, you can think about it, but it never happens until you just say, I must needs go win that person to Christ. I must needs go witness to that family member. You have got to have a conscious effort that I am going down to Samaria. And you'll find out later when Jesus was ascending back up into heaven after his death and resurrection in Acts chapter 1 and verse 8, it says, and Jesus reminded them of this good fishing hole. What did he say? But ye shall receive power after the Holy Ghost is come upon you, and ye shall be witnesses unto me both in Jerusalem and in Judea and in Samaria and unto the uttermost part of the earth. Just before he ascends, he says, don't forget about that great fishing hole up in Samaria. And every one of us, we need to think about a place that we can actually go to and share the gospel of Jesus Christ. And then we need to realize that when we head out to the fishing hole, there's many ways and types of fishing that can be done. And I'm just going to share a little 6-point plan here. First off, start a conversation with anyone. When you're out there in public and you're going through your daily life and you're doing your normal things, don't be afraid to just start up a conversation with someone. In fact, so many times we've become so private and we've become so focused on what we're doing, we don't have time for people. We don't have time to talk. But you're never going to be a soul winner if you can't learn how to start a conversation. And that means when you're at the grocery store, start a conversation with the checkout person. Start a conversation with the lady that stands at the door of Walmart. Start a conversation with the butcher as you're picking out your meat. And you know what? Everywhere you go, go out with the attitude, I am going to start a conversation with somebody and get to meet someone. I was preaching a meeting in Springfield, Missouri years ago, and a lady brought a man from her work, and he'd never been to a church like ours before, and man, when I began to preach, his mouth was open, and he was hanging on every word I said. And when I held the altar call, that man walked to the altar, and he was gloriously saved that night. And after the service, I went to this lady, and I said, well, that is so wonderful that you brought your co-worker to the meeting tonight. And I said, where do you work? And she said, well, I work over here at such and such factory. I can't remember the name. But then she looked at me and she said, but you know, Brother Kent, that's just my cover. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? She says, yeah, I work there, but that's my cover. And I said, ma'am, tell me, what do you mean, your cover? She says, everybody in the factory thinks I just work there, but I'm really undercover for Jesus Christ. I get my New Testament in my pocket and some gospel tracts every morning, and I go to work undercover, and I'm there to win everybody in that factory to Jesus Christ. And I thought, there's a lady that's really thinking right. She heads out every day to the fishing hole, the factory where she works. And then once she's there, she starts conversations with people. And the conversation she started with that man said, hey, we're in revival this week. We've got an evangelist. His name is Kent York. Why don't you come and hear him preach? And that man came that night and he got saved. Secondly, adjust your life pattern to make conversation possible. Some people rush in and rush out, and you're so focused. I mean, you go to Walmart, you are on a mission. And you have got to stay on task. You need a new bag of marshmallows, and nothing is going to distract you from getting to the marshmallow aisle. Well, slow down. Get your head up. Look around. adjust the way you're living so that there could be a chance for a conversation. And I find many times at the store, when you're out or when you're in a business place, it's very easy to start a conversation with someone, but you've got to adjust the pattern of your life. Thirdly, chat about everyday life. You know, you don't always have to just go out and just talk about the Bible all the time. I think many times when you start a conversation with someone, it's just good to have a conversation where you just talk about life in general. You can talk about all subjects. If you get down to it and you're just at a stump, then you can always talk about the stupidest subject on the face of the earth, and that's the weather. We all talk about it every day. There's not a thing we can do about it, but we seem to love to talk about the weather. But you know what I mean? When you're talking to people out there and you're trying to fish that hole, you start with just some simple conversation of maybe something you could relate to. You may want to talk about sports. You may want to talk about fishing. You may want to talk about your grandkids. But start talking about things that they can relate to and just start building that conversation with everyday life. And then it's a wonderful thing to ask questions. You can begin to ask questions. Jesus was the master of asking people questions, and they could be simple questions like, are you interested in spiritual things at all? I like to ask people sometimes, are you good at giving directions? And they'll say, well, yes or no. And then they'll usually say, well, where are you trying to get to? And I'd say, well, I was just wondering if you knew how to get to heaven. Do you know how to get to heaven? And ask questions that are going to lead the conversation, because the next thing that's so important is when you ask people questions, then they're going to come back with questions, and then they're going to answer your questions. And so many times our conversations are so one-sided. You know, I hate to say it, but many times we talk to people and we're just hoping they will shut up so that I can talk next. But when you want to be a soul winner, a fisher of men, you got to learn to not only ask questions, but listen to their answers, because in those answers, it's very revealing what's going on in their lives. So many times people will come back and you'll talk to them about, are you interested in spiritual things? Oh, I used to go to church, but I got bad at church. Well, listen to that. They got their feelings hurt at church, and you need to wade into that, and you need to try to not necessarily defend what happened, but try to figure out what the hurt is, what the separation is. And then there'll be some that'll say, well, you know, my mom and daddy always made me go to church, and you know there's some baggage there. There's an issue there with their family, and they're upset at their parents about something. You've got to get past those things. And so when you ask questions, listen to what they're saying to you. And usually within just a few questions, you can figure out where these people are spiritually. You could ask the question of, well, what do you think about Jesus? And how do you go to heaven? And do you think anybody is perfect? You can ask very simple questions, and it will lead up to the place where you'll understand exactly where they're coming from. And then finally, share Jesus with them. See, you've gone fishing, you're out there among the people, you're getting these conversations going, and once the conversation is going, then there will be a good time when you can just share Jesus Christ. And remember, one of the greatest tools you have to share Jesus Christ is tell what happened in your own life. Tell about how you got saved. Tell about how the Lord changed your life and blessed your family. Nobody can argue with that, because that is your story. And share that story with them. See, when we go fishing, one of the great methods is to start that great conversation. And then finally, if we're going to head out to the fishing hole, we've got to do it by building relationships with people. Salvation is not just something, go out there, lickety-split, bang, 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 let me give you the gospel, now get saved, and it's all over. No, sometimes it takes a while to build a relationship with someone. Yes, some people are real easy. You can build a relationship with just a 15-minute conversation, but other people, it takes a while. Now, one of the great methods of building a relationship is we look at how Jesus loved to share when he was around the meal table, around the table. If you will go in your Bible, you will find that in John 2:2, he went to the wedding in Cana, and that was where really his earthly ministry began. And then finally, he sees Zacchaeus up in that tree and says, come down, I'm going to go to dinner with you today. I'm eating at your house, Luke 19:1. And then we find that he ate with the tax collectors and the sinners in Matthew 9:10, because you remember the Pharisees were all mad because he was eating with sinners. He was sitting around the table with sinners, and they didn't like that. And then in Matthew 26:17, of course, the Last Supper with all of his apostles around the table. Jesus loved to use the meal table as a place to build relationships. Years ago, when I was starting my first church in Kalamazoo, Michigan, I was bivocational, and so I had to get another job, and for a while I was training to sell insurance. Oh yeah, we can make you an insurance salesman, and I never did eventually do it, but I went through some of the training, and part of the training was I had to come in and watch videos of how to sell life insurance out in the home. And I thought it was very interesting that in those videos, they said, now when you go into a house to sell life insurance, don't go in and sit down on the couch. Don't just stand in the living room. Always try to get the conversation to go into the dining room or into the kitchen and sit down with them around the table. Go to the kitchen table and sit down, and if they offer you anything, always take it, even if it's just a glass of water. And if they don't offer you anything, then ask them if you could have a drink of water. And even some said, carry some little pills and say, I need to take these 2 pills. Could I get a glass of water? And they'll get you a glass of water, and you take those 2 fake pills and act like you've taken some medication. And the logic behind this is that when you sit at a table with someone in their home, you've crossed another barrier. You are not just a salesman in the living room. You have had a meal with them. You have sat at the table, even though it was a glass of water. You have built a very important relationship with them. So the meal table has always been very, very important. And some scholars even have referred to Jesus as eating his way through the Gospels, because time and time again you find Jesus eating with someone, spending time with someone. And don't discount that. Invite people to go to lunch with you and talk to them about the Lord. Invite people over to your home. Some of you, You haven't had someone in your home for years and years. You've almost lost the art of hospitality. If you want to be a fisher of men, open conversations, build relationships, and then say, hey, I'd love for y'all to come over and have dinner with us tonight. Come over. We're just going to have something simple. But you know what? When you sit down around that table, you bond with those people and you build a relationship. And Jesus was one of the best at doing that. And then later on, we find that Paul, he taught in Galatians 6:10, as ye have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men. You know, there's nothing wrong with showing hospitality. It's a way to, well, somebody's calling me in the middle of this thing, and I don't really want to talk to them, so let's turn it off. You know, if you're in the middle of a conversation with someone, around that table, it's a great, great opportunity to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. I've led many, many people to the Lord over a meal table, around their kitchen table, because it's just a relaxed time where you can have a one-on-one with them. So now we see that if we're going to be fishers of men, we've got to actually go to the fishing hole. Hang up that gone fishing sign and say, I'm not just sitting at home praying. I'm not just sitting at home wishing. I'm not just sitting at home thinking, wouldn't it be nice if my loved ones and my friends and my family were saved? No, we're not just dreaming about it. We're actually going to go out there and we're going to go fishing. And I'm going to tell you, when you go fishing, when you catch that first one, oh my goodness, the joy of pulling in that big one and knowing that I led someone to Jesus Christ, and now not only am I going to heaven, but they're going to go to heaven with me. What great joy that brings to your heart. Oh, don't you want to be a fisher of men? Don't you want to see people saved? Well, make an effort today to say, I am starting and I am going to be a fisher of men.